Welcome to the AI Applied Podcast. I'm your host, Connor Grennan.
And I'm your host, Jaden Schaefer. Every week, we break down the latest in AI news, tools, interviews, and discuss how to apply AI into your career and life. On the AI Applied Podcast today, we wanted to talk a little bit about kicking this off with everything that happened with Gemini. This is a massive debacle. Of course, I came out kicking when this thing was launched and said, Google has leapfrogged OpenAI. It's game on. I was looking at this demo. I was blown away. It's incredible. Okay, we're going to talk about Google Gemini, what it can do, sort of its demo. But sadly, we have to kind of come out of the gate talking about the most recent news, which is a lot of their demo was faked. Connor, what are you seeing on this?
Jaden, what's happening here? Like, honestly, what's happening? Like, Google, we want to like you. Like I was just like posting a YouTube about this. You and I have been going back and forth on this. I'm genuinely confused by this, right? And I'm not trying to bash Google. I love Google. Google has the most phenomenal products. Like, they've changed the way I work, the way we all work, everything else. And we all knew, like, oh, wow, Gemini better be phenomenal. And then what is it? Was it last week? No, it was probably like a few days ago where we were all like, they've delayed again. What's happening here? And I was sort of saying, like, look, this seems like a problem of leadership, right? Because when all these other smaller companies can do this, then and no shade to Sundar Pichai, I just don't know. There must be something happening here. So it comes out, and I love what they did, right? They sort of like pulled an OpenAI with we're not going to tell everybody, like, oh, what? We dropped this? Oh, we didn't even notice we dropped it. Do you know what I mean? Like, how OpenAI just like pulls stuff out.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it comes out, and at first I'm watching this. I'm in the airport. I'm watching it. I'm like, okay, that looks pretty good. I did have a couple of questions around. I wasn't sort of like super impressed, except with how unbelievably conversational it was. So the capabilities weren't blowing me away, but I was like, that's cool. But it felt like I was sitting next to like a really smart buddy, and we were just talking. I was like, okay, it's all about the experience. And then, Jaden, we found out that the whole thing, the experience, was the thing that was inauthentic, right?
Yeah, and so this is the same thing with me. I was blown away, not because of the capabilities, because honestly, like, a lot of it is what, like, OpenAI already announced. Like, it's the vision, it's the code interpreter, it's like all the same stuff where, like, it understands what's going on, it can look at your stuff, but I was like, oh my gosh, the incredible thing here is it's doing it live. It's doing it in video. And this is how they presented. They had this video where they're like, what is this? And it's like, that's a duck. And it's like, it's squeaky. Will it float? And they're like, if it's squeaking, it will definitely float. And they like put the duck on a map, and they're like, where's the duck now? And it's like, oh, the duck is on a map. It's far away from land. So it's not going to have like any food sources. Like, it's just like all this like very conversational stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, like they cracked this like super quick, no latency conversational video like feed AI. Which, I know that like the vision thing feeds into that, but it's not like that out of the box. And so the one big thing that a lot of people were saying was like, hey, look, like, this is just them making a big announcement. They haven't actually launched this thing, so you can't give them too much credit. And I'm like, okay, but I was kind of willing to look past that, because I was like, well, it does something new and unique that we haven't seen. And then, yeah, like you said, we all found out today that this was fake. And so to the level that it was fake or staged, like, yes, their AI has the capabilities of, essentially they caught up with ChatGPT and GPT-4, but this stuff came out like earlier this year, and so we know GPT-5 is going to be coming out. So it seems like they're just playing a big game of catch up, and they're kind of like, I don't want to say copying, but like they're just doing what OpenAI has already done. That there was nothing like revolutionary and new. I thought the video feed was it. It wasn't it. Yeah, there's this one thing I thought was really interesting. I was looking at the TechCrunch article, and they were talking about how they actually generated this fake video, and literally the prompt for it was 3 pictures of open hand, a hand in a fist, and a hand like doing scissors. And the prompt that they gave it was, what do you think I'm doing? Hint, it's a game. And then Gemini's like, you're playing rock, paper, scissors. Kate, like in the video, it was just like a dude like making the motion of rock, paper, scissors. And it was like, oh, you're playing rock, paper, scissors. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. It could like figure that out. That's the biggest like scam bait and switch. Literally, hint, it's a game. Like, come on.
But Jaden, that was my moment too. I had a couple of moments in that video where, it saw that it was doing rock, paper, scissors quicker than like I saw it. I was like, wait, yeah, what are they doing? And it was like, no, man, it's rock. And that's why I say that they were selling an experience, right? Because you're right, the capabilities weren't that great. It's like, oh, look how we're beating ChatGPT 4. The problem with that was that it's beating ChatGPT 4 by like incremental amounts when ChatGPT 4 was released, back in March. And by the way, this was Ultra, which hasn't even been released yet. And as soon as I
Yeah.
saw sort of like a canned demo, I'm like, oh no, come on. So, and then I immediately thought, like, when I saw the video, the things that were kind of cool to me was like, hey, what's this? What's happening on this couch? It was like a video of like a cat on a couch. And it was like, oh, the cat's going to jump. And then the cat like falls, like probably some typical meme. It's like, oh, didn't see that coming. And I was like, man, feels very conversational. But even then I was thinking like, well, could it just break down the video in chunks in, images and then do that?
Hmm.
But I'm like, no, no, this is Gemini. There is no way. But
Yeah.
then I went on Twitter and, Andrew Main, who, in fairness used to be at OpenAI, but a super bright guy. He's like, hey man, we were doing this a long time ago, and when we did our things around this, like we did it live. But the thing that I think really irritated me wasn't it I could imagine nitpicking. It's like, okay, the rock paper scissors, okay, there was a little latency, they wanted to speed up. But Jaden, my sense was that they did this for every part of the experience, and even
Yeah.
sort of like in this this MMLU benchmark, which is this massive multitask language understanding, or multimodal, whatever it is, like, and sort of this sense of, hey, this is like a real great test on reasoning and everything else. And guess what, it beats ChatGPT 4, and it beats like the human by sort of a nose, all that kind of stuff. Even that, so frustrating on this, because it turned out, I don't know if you saw this too, but like the way that ChatGPT 4 was tested against this benchmark was just, it was just tested, but apparently, like Gemini, I think I have it here. It was like it achieved its 90% score under specific conditions. Right. It was given 32 examples to learn from, and it used chain of thought. Right.
Yeah.
Sort of, if people don't know it, it's just a sort of a really efficient way of using an LLM to sort of say, okay, what's next? What's next? It just helps it kind of like quote unquote think better. But in contrast, GPT-4 was only given 5 examples and didn't use the chain of thought. And it's kind of like what you're talking about the duck and the rock, paper, scissors, everything else, where it was just like, it's like, your parent, is sort of like kind of like giving you like hints as to sort of like where to find the Easter egg or something like that. It just felt like it was kind of cheating. Sorry to use that word, but like all the way through, because it
Yeah.
felt like it was trying to sell an experience, and that was the fake part.
And when you're cheating and you present it to everyone as real, like, I mean, this is not investment advice. This is not, for educational purposes only. That seems like fraud to me.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
know that seems like a little extreme and people are going to get mad and whatever. And Google's awesome. They got great capabilities, yada, yada. But like, come on. I felt like I got the wool pulled over my eyes because I went and released a podcast episode talking about all the amazing capabilities of ChatGPT. I got to go do or of Gemini. I got to go do a correction episode. I had to go correct my LinkedIn post. Like, I looked really dumb. Like, come on, Google. Like, that's not very cool. You know what I
It's
mean?
it's not cool, and it really is genuinely like that. And here's the thing that's stunning to me, is that again they had this back with Bard, right? They lost $100 billion off their market cap because they tried to do a live demo, it screwed up, and so obviously they were terrified of this. But that's not how you play this game. Like, if you're Google, like, go live or don't go live. And again, if this was a small startup, I'd be super forgiving. I mean, even with something
Yeah.
like Grok, and look, Elon is not a small startup by any means. But Elon's making a push, and look, I have I have issues with Elon and stuff like that. But like, he's making a push on something like Grok. But let's stay with Gemini for a second here, because really the in an AI applied podcast, like, look, I put this up on YouTube and on LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff. And even yesterday, I was out. I was talking to this giant sort of group of CEOs, and I was talking about this. They're like, "Well, what about Gemini?" I'm like, guys, we got to watch this carefully. This is before I think we knew the whole sort of like scheme and sort of like the whole extent of what was happening in this. But in terms of AI applied, like, what do people need to know? My take, Jaden, is that, like, look, it's good news, right? Bard is now up to GPT 3.5. You can use Bard. That's another competitor. Ultra will come out. We'll be able to do that. The not Pro, Nano, Gemini Nano is going to be on phones. So look, it's not that it's not going to be useful, right, to people. And it's great to have the competition, everything else, especially probably for AI Box, which is your awesome startup where it uses a lot of different things. But my problem with it is not sort of the applied part. My problem is what is happening with Google. But what's your take on sort of like the application of all of this?
Yeah, so the big takeaway I think for people listening to the podcast, like, bottom line, keep using all the Chat GPT, OpenAI capabilities. That's, I think, the best. Well, that is the best in the market. Even if you wanted to argue that Google's slightly edges them out in some areas, which I think is dubious at best. But if you wanted to make that argument, it's not live, and also it's their ultra their highest version. So for all intents and purposes, everything OpenAI has is the best in class on the market. So for people listening, the application is continue to use those. Those features are the best you're going to get. Um, the thing that I wanted to also bring up is a few days ago I was in San Francisco. I was at a movie premiere for the co-founder of Oculus. He had like a documentary made about him and stuff, and invited me, and it was cool. But while I was there, I drove by the Google headquarters. I was like, oh, I just want to go see it. Look, like, this is a massive campus. I think it is lost on people how many employees Google has, how big their market cap is. This is a gargantuan company. Like, this is insane. And it's like Apple, but the difference is Apple is like focused on hardware, so you can be a little bit more forgiving because it's like I have a literal phone from Apple that they like. Google, I mean, I guess Google has some phones and stuff, but really their bread and butter is software. And so you expect Google to be really on top of this. And they have so many freaking employees. It blows my mind. The other thing I want to say is when it comes to like Google's financial gains from this whole thing, when they made the announcement, boom, their stock price went up 5%. So 5% on a company that has a $1.7 trillion market cap, that is the equivalent of $85 billion that they like instantly jumped with this Gemini announcement. Okay, so it's a little bit dubious. It's not 100% what we said. Guess what the response is? Their stock price comes down like 1.5% today. So it's like, from Google's perspective, they're like, oops, like, oh, you guys got the wrong impression. Well, like, because I know like a whole bunch of traders that like Jason Calacanis, he runs the This Week in Startups podcast, and he kind of like live trades on some stuff, and he's like, oh my gosh, the Gemini thing, this is amazing. I'm just going and buying like $130,000 worth of Google stock right now because this is epic, right? And so like I know a lot of people did that, right? And so in any case, I don't know where he stands, if he's gonna like kind of double down and be like, no, it's okay, I'm gonna keep my trade because like now it went down a little bit. But in any case, I think I don't want to see any more of these shenanigans out of Google or anybody else. Show me the tech when you release the tech. I liked Dev Day at OpenAI when they like announced it, and then you could go start making GPTs right away, or they started rolling that out like immediately. I like that. I think that should be it. I hate the whole demo and come back in a few months, right? So didn't like that, but it'll be interesting to see where Google kind of takes this in the future.
Yeah, no question. I mean, listen, Google, as we always say, Google is going to be fine. They have 92% of search. Like, most of the world doesn't even know that this is happening with Gemini. Look, it's only good for the consumer that they're coming out. My sort of take from the AI in our AI bubble here is that, like, sorry, I just can't kind of help but question the leadership of this company. I mean, when you see sort of like OpenAI and you see sort of a small company with hundreds of people, what they're able to pull off, even Anthropic, Inflection, all these small companies, what they're able to pull off, and Google has 200,000 employees and where it's in code red and everything else and wasn't able to do it. It's just disappointing. So listen, kudos to sort of like, OpenAI, Anthropic, and Inflection, all these other smaller guys. But look, we'll keep an eye on Google. But it feels like they shot their shot and like this was it, and it fell flat. So that was disappointing.
Yeah. So wrapping this up, my final like little thing, which I think is in line with everything you're saying, they shot their shot, which I think is more telling than you might imagine. Why? Because they barely caught up with GPT-4. There was news that, oh, this thing's gonna get like delayed till like or like Q1 of next year, but they kind of surprised us and did it early. Why did they surprise us and do it early? My take on this is that they, in all their little tweaking ways, could barely edge out GPT-4. They didn't think they were going to be able to have a significant jump start. They were worried GPT-5 was going to come and crush them, so they jumped on it now with their like ghetto rigged version that's they could kind of say is slightly better, so it saves face and looks good. When GPT-5 comes out, I think they're toast. I think they're further behind, because if they really want, like, they had to do some sketchy stuff to be better than GPT-4. So I think they're further behind. And it does cause me some cause for concern with Google. Hey, listen, thank you so much to everyone that tuned into the AI Applied podcast today. We really appreciate it. Make sure to rate us wherever you get your podcasts. It makes a huge difference. Connor personally feels joy every time he reads your
Every
your
time.
reviews. So we really do appreciate it, but we hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day.